Great to have you. If you came in late, we want to welcome you to Emerge Church today. It's a special day in the history of this church, as you well know. We are going to introduce you to Joseph. He goes by Joe, but I call him Joseph. And Melanie, if you guys would like to come up. So we met with them yesterday in kind of a meet and greet with people from our church. Had to get a chance to get to know them a little bit. Their children are here today, Caleb and Lovely. Loveland, sorry.
We call her Lovey.
You call her Lovey too, okay. So good to have you here. And both their sets of parents are here from Airdrie and from Lacombe. And so I just asked, Joe's going to be the one actually preaching today. But Melanie, I just said, come on up and just share a couple things with us. And I don't know how long you want to talk, but
No one knows.
no one knows.
He gets really scared when I have a mic. No one ever knows what I'm going to say. It's hilarious.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
No problem. I just like having a good time. It's fun. Hi, I'm Melanie. Yeah. She's my best friend now. We met, yeah. She's a good time. Yeah, see? She's fun. Yeah, I'm Melanie. I don't know what else to tell you. Yeah. I like having fun, and when I do announcements on stage, Joe gets really nervous. So this is like probably terrifying him right now. But that's all I'm going to say. Okay, there you go.
That's good. Okay. So they're from Vancouver Island, Ladysmith. Been pastoring there for about 7 years as the lead pastor of the church, and then also about 7 years in Penticton, which is, I have no idea why you left Penticton. That's one of the best places in the world, and Okanagan. And we'll tell you a little bit more in the process of how things came to where they are today after the service when we have a formal vote for them. But I want you to give just a real warm welcome to Pastor Joe and Melanie today as he comes and preaches.
Thanks. Thanks, Murray.
Fine.
Thank you. Right on. Well, good morning, everybody. How are you all doing? Good. Hey, before I begin, I just want to extend sincere appreciation to Pastor Murray. Isn't he just fantastic? He has been so good during this entire process, and I know that he's worked on your side of things with the board and the search committee, but he's also just been really great for me and Mel and our whole family, just answering our questions, taking us around town, giving us a tour of the church, all of the different things. And so thank you for your hospitality and your leadership here, and we just really appreciate you and the little time that we've gotten to know each other. A little bit about me. I gotta put this down if I can. There we go. My eyesight's still good, so. I've spent more of my life in BC than Alberta, although I did grow up here. A little bit about myself. My parents, Heather and Sterling Bott. Yes, to answer your question, my entire childhood was, yes, I'm related. They're my second cousin, so let's get that out of the way. We grew up I grew up in Withrow, Alberta, until I was a teenager, and then my parents made the big move to just outside of Leslieville, Alberta. I was actually born in the Eckville Hospital, and then shortly after I was born, they had figured they had just about enough of that, and they closed it down. And so that's just a little bit about me and where I'm from. One of my fond memories growing up out here was going backpacking every summer. My dad would take us kids hiking up the Klein River Trail in the Rocky Mountains. Has anyone here ever been backpacking before? A couple of people. Okay, a few of you. So if you've been backpacking before, you know that you carry all your supplies in your backpack, and as you begin the journey, it's pretty easy, it's pretty light, and then the longer that you go, that backpack gets heavier and heavier. Now, because we were young kids, we never went too far up the trail, but my dad would always talk about this gorgeous oasis on the top of the mountain. It's called Pinto Lake. And so actually, I have a picture of it, just how beautiful this is for your viewing pleasure. It'll come up in a second. I'll just keep talking about it while we wait for it to come up. And so I decided when I was in college that I really wanted to take the trip up to Pinto Lake. And so me and my buddy Mike decided to drive all the way from the college in BC where we were out to the Klein River trailhead, and we started to hike up the trail. And we started going up, and everything was going really well, and things were good, and we were full of high spirits. But somewhere between like 4,000 and 4,000 hours into the hike, not entirely clear, we were getting exhausted. And particularly my buddy Mike was getting really, really tired. And we came to this part in the trail where it had kind of been washed over with a rock slide. And so, it's quite a steep angle, and we're walking across it like this. And all of a sudden, my buddy Mike just plops to the ground in the middle of this rock slide. I'm like, Mike, what are you doing? It's like we've got to almost be there. And he's like, no. He's like, I'm done. I've had enough. I'm not going any further. I'm pitching my tent right here. And I'm like you're just going to roll down the mountain, Mike. Like, what are you trying to do? And I can't help but think that many of us in our spiritual journey come to a place where we feel like my friend Mike, where you can remember the good old days of when you began your walk with Jesus and things were light and they were easy, and then you get going in your walk with Jesus and you experience difficulties and challenges and a few tribulations along the way, and then you're just like, that's it, I'm done. I'm stuck somewhere between the past and the promise. We can remember the lightness of the glory days, the start of our journey, but as we forge ahead with confidence in the promise that Jesus has given us, sometimes it feels like that promise is further away than it first was. God's presence doesn't always feel near. We become discouraged. Perhaps we lose hope. And the temptation is to pitch our tent on a rock slide, stuck somewhere between the glory days and the promise of what God has for us ahead. And if this is you, if you've ever felt like this, I want you to know that you're not alone. One of my favorite Bible passages, one of my favorite Bible stories comes out of Exodus 33. And if you get to know me a little bit more, you'll find out that just about every Bible passage is one of my favorite Bible passages. But Moses finds himself in a very similar situation, stuck between the past and the promise. Stuck somewhere between those victorious days of walking through the Red Sea on dry ground and the Promised Land. And he wasn't on a rock slide, but he was at the foot of Mount Sinai, stuck with a group of people that God had called to be a great and glorious nation, and they only knew how to be slaves. Now, Moses hit an all-time low one day. He came down the mountains and he had tablets written by God himself. And he comes down, and in their anxiety, for Moses being gone so long, the people have created a golden calf and they begin to worship it. And Moses is furious. And in fact, it says that he melted down the golden calf, ground it into powder, put it in the water, and made the people drink it. And my kids are mad when I tell them they have to eat their vegetables. Moses had hit an all-time low. And shortly thereafter, Moses was having a conversation with the Lord. He would go into the tent of meeting, it was called, and he would talk to God there. And I want to narrow in on that conversation. So we're going to take a look at Exodus 33, starting in verse 12. And I want you to listen to the weariness in Moses' voice. One day Moses said to the Lord, "You have been telling me, take these people up to the promised land, but you haven't told me whom you will send with me. You have told me I know you by name and I look favorably on you. If this is true, that you look favorably on me, let me know your ways so I may understand you more fully and continue to enjoy your favor. And remember that this nation is your very own people." Moses was stuck between the middle of where God had brought them from and to where he was taking them to. And he needed God once again. This time, not to part the waters, not to send plagues on Egypt, not miraculous signs and wonders. What he needed was God to restore his weary soul. He says, if it's true. See, Moses understood intellectually that God was with him. Moses even understood experientially that God was with him. I mean, God used him to bring the 10 plagues to Egypt, to walk through the Red Sea on dry ground. He had seen God intervene in miraculous ways. And so he understood here, he understood through his experience, but there was a disconnect in his heart. There was a disconnect relationally. In his heart, he was struggling with faith. And so what does Moses ask for? He asks to know God more, not just intellectually, but relationally. He didn't want to just know about God. He didn't just want to be used by God. He wanted to know him personally. And Moses' request reminds us that signs and wonders are no substitute for the personal presence of God. All the theology textbooks in the world are no substitute for the personal presence of God. So how does God respond to Moses' bold request? Well, in verse 14 it says this, "The Lord replied, I will personally go with you, Moses, and I will give you rest. Everything will be fine for you." Listen to the fondness that God speaks to Moses. I will personally go with you, Moses. I will give you rest. Everything will be fine with you. He calls Moses by name. He promises his very own personal presence, no middle managers from heaven. He promises him that everything is going to be okay, and even more than okay. God reassures Moses that he has not forgotten him or abandoned him. He's not left him to an aimless future. He will give him rest for his weary soul, and he will deliver on his promise. So how does Moses respond to this beautiful promise of God? In verse 15 it says that Moses said, "If you don't personally go with us, don't make us leave this place. How will anyone know that you look favorably on me and your people, if you don't go with us? For your presence among us sets your people and me apart from all other people on the earth." How does Moses respond? He doubles down. He doubles down. He says, God, you better not just be saying that. You better not be kidding me. This better not just be some platitude that you say because I'm feeling down and I'm feeling low and you're just patting me on the back and saying, hey, it's going to be okay. He's like, no, I'm serious. If you aren't going with us, then don't take us from here. Moses understood it would be better to build homes in the desert than to forge ahead without the presence of God. This time he also does something different. As the first time he prays, he asks God to be with him. The second time, he intercedes not just for himself, but for the people, for everyone together. He understands that it's not just him on this journey. He says, if you don't personally go with us. Moses understood that he had a holy responsibility to shepherd the people of God. And so he does not just pray for his own needs, but for the needs of the people. And Moses also understood rightly that what set the Israelites apart from all the other people, all the other nations in the world, was God's presence among them. And so God answers him one more time. The Lord replied to Moses, I will indeed do what you have asked, for I look favorably on you, and I know you by name. Friends, God doesn't change. His answer is the same every time. It's like, Moses, I'm with you. I've got you. I will be with you. He doesn't change. God reaffirms his promise. He's patient with Moses in his doubt and unbelief. Now, I don't know about you. I would like to think that at this point, I'd be like, okay, God, we're good. I understand. You're with me. That's all I need to know. Let's do this thing. And maybe that would be enough for you too. But it was not enough for Moses. Moses is very bold. And he says this, then show me your glorious presence. Some translations say, glory. In other words, prove it. If you are everything that you say you are, if you are everything that you tell me that you are, if you really care about me the way that you are promising, let me know you more. And against all odds, God does. He hides Moses in the rocks, and he passes by, and he hides his presence from him until he goes past him, and then he shows Moses just a drop of the bottomless ocean that is his glorious love. As God passes before Moses, he calls out his name, his self-revelation. And before we get to Jesus, I believe this is the fullest revelation of God in the Old Testament before we run into Jesus. And he says these words, Yahweh the Lord, the God of compassion and mercy. I'm slow to anger and filled with unfailing love and faithfulness. I lavish unfailing love to 1,000 generations. I forgive iniquity, rebellion, and sin. But I do not excuse the guilty. I lay the sins of their parents upon their children and grandchildren. The entire family is affected, even children to the 3rd and 4th generations. Do you notice that the first way that God describes himself is the God of compassion and mercy? That's a whole sermon, so we're not going to spend all day there, but God reveals himself to Moses personally in a beautiful, incredible way. And so why am I sharing this story with you? What is the significance that it has for today? Well, I think like Moses, many of us find ourselves in between the past and the promise. As followers of Jesus, we're stuck in the middle of a new exodus. God has delivered us out of the bondage of sin and death, and now we find ourselves on the path of discipleship, what Eugene Peterson calls a long obedience in the same direction. And as we walk that long obedience, looking forward to the promise of the new creation, to the promise when God will make all things new and all things right and everything as it should be. And it's easy to become complacent in our faith, to look back at all that God has delivered us from and to settle for convenience over calling. The desert is barren, but it's sure a whole lot better than Egypt. See, many people believe that their walk with Christ ended when they were delivered from sin and death. It's kind of a get out of jail free card. I get to go to heaven when I die, and that's good enough. But friends, let me tell you that God has so much more in store for you. He has so much more in store for you. This isn't Jesus on a cruise. He didn't call you to be comfortable and just to kind of coast off into the sunset. He gives you identity and purpose in this life. So don't pitch your tent. Keep going because his presence is with you. This leads us to the second point. You are the people of God's presence. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of Terry Cross. And I just love the way that he says it so plainly. See, friends, just as what made Israel distinguishable from the rest of the world was the presence of God, so too is that what separates the church from all other people on the earth. When the Spirit fell on the day of Pentecost, the church was born. And so, if I could ask you a question, Emerge, what is it that you offer this town? What is it that you bring that is important? Is it great programs? Is it a good Sunday morning experience? Is it welcoming hospitality? Friends, if I could give you the answer to that, it is nothing more but definitely nothing less than the presence of Jesus. That is what separates you. That is what makes you unique. That is your holy calling that you walk in, that everywhere that you go, to your friends and your neighbors, to your workplace, that you bring the presence of Jesus with you. You are the people of God's presence. And I understand that there are times like Moses where we can question the nearness of God's presence. Times where he feels distant or far removed. You may feel overlooked by God. Maybe even abandoned. But the promise we hold in our hearts is that he will never leave us or forsake us. See, like Moses, it's one thing to understand God on an intellectual level, and it's another one to know him on a relational level. This is a Pentecostal church, right? Now, at great danger to myself, I'm going to step way out on a limb and share with you what I believe to be the core of what it means to be Pentecostal. I believe that the core of a Pentecostal church, the defining trait of Pentecostalism, is, in the words of our statement of faith, the shared experience of God's transforming presence. See, the centrality of experiencing the divine presence is difficult to overstate. It's the very heartbeat of the movement. Before tongues, before the baptism of the Spirit, is the belief that God delights in sharing his presence with his people. That he desires to be known not just intellectually, not just experientially, but also effectively. And there's something that is deep in my bones that resonates with Moses' boldness, that resonates with his call to God, his response to God, show me your glory. Friends, I've had experiences in God's presence where I've felt his nearness, where I've felt his closeness, undeniable moments that have anchored my faith. And I know that many of you are here today because you have had similar experiences. And there's a temptation here as well to pitch our tent, to act as if the presence of God is just for you. But we are called to be the people who bring the presence of Jesus into the world. Just as Moses and the children of Israel could not stay at the bottom of Mount Sinai, they needed to go ahead into the promised land, so too do we as the people of God's presence need to bring the good news of Jesus, to bring his presence out into the world. Finally, we have seen his glory. See, it may surprise you, but each of us have experienced God's glorious presence in a way that Moses would only ever dream of. In John 14:9, it says this: "So the Word became human and made his home among us. He was full of unfailing love and faithfulness, and we have seen his glory, the glory of the Father's one and only Son." Jesus is the fullest revelation of God, and the church is full of his presence. In Ephesians 1:22-23, it states, "God has put all things under the authority of Christ and has made him head over all things for the benefit of the church. And the church is his body. It is made full and complete by Christ, who fills all things everywhere with himself." See, friends, the glory of God was lifted up on the cross. He bore our sin and our shame, making a way for us to walk in a relationship with God, with himself. He sent his presence into the church, filling us with identity and purpose with himself. He has made us the people of God's presence. We have seen his glory. It is the hope that we carry in our hearts, and it is the message that we bring out into the world. Friends, you as a church are on a journey of becoming the local community of people that God has called you to be. He has brought you this far, and his heart is to bring you so much further. To bring you to a place that is greater than you could ask, think, or imagine. Friends, I firmly believe that the best days of the church are ahead of her, not behind her. Not in some glory days of yesteryear, but that God has so much more in store for the church. You know, I don't know what God holds for your future, but I do know that He is with you. You know, as human beings, we have this tendency to look at the past with fondness and into the future with anxiety, don't we? But God gives us peace for today and hope for tomorrow. And that peace and that hope gives us strength to live in the present, because the present also happens to be the only place that we can experience life. It's the only place that we can experience God's presence. It's the only place that we can have communion with Him. It's the only place that we can respond in obedience to His calling. I don't know what lies ahead for you as a church, but I do know that God is with you. He has never left your side, not for a moment. And my prayer for you is that you do not depart from this place unless He goes with you. Because let's be really honest for a second here. Anybody with a business plan can grow a church. There's a quote by Francis Chan that kind of lives rent-free in my head. Kind of reminds me, because I like to plan and I like to dream and I like to have a vision of the way that things should be. He says this: I bet you would agree that a group of talented, charismatic leaders can draw a crowd, find the right creative team, musicians, and speakers, and you can grow any church. Friends, anyone with a business plan can build a church, but only God's life-giving Spirit can transform lives. Emerge, never forget your holy calling as the people of God's presence. Let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, as I stand here in front of this congregation this morning, God, I know your fondness and your love towards these people. Father, I pray a blessing over them. God, I pray a blessing of your Spirit, a blessing of your presence. Father, the prayer that Paul prayed, that they would understand the width and the depth and the height of your love towards them. Father, I pray a blessing for their future. God, I just stand with them, believing that the best days are yet to come. In Jesus' name, amen.